Montreal. So the Impact, just like last year, came oh so close of making the playoffs, but unfortunately they finished outside of it, and that they once again are eliminated, and that they finished the record with a 12-5-17 record, have 41 points, and score 47 goals, allowing 60 while having a goal differential of minus 13. Top goal scored for Montreal. Sofia Taidia leads that list with 9 goals, followed by Orji Okwanko with 8 goals. Lassi Lapinainen, the summer signing for the Impact, back in 5 goals during his short time here at the Impact. Maxi Urruti, who of course was signed during the winter transfer window, had 4 goals. And Zachary Dalot, who's no longer with this team because he's been loan out of this team, currently have 3 goals. And the top assist leader, it's Taidia, once again tops that list with 7 assists. Then followed by Urruti with 6 assists, Sanya with 3, Novella with 2, and Omar Brownie, who's no longer with this team, also have 2 assists to round out the top assist leader. What went right for the Impact? Well, they won the Canadian Championship, and obviously down the stretch, I think there was, for the Impact, they had 2 options. Either they focused on the Canadian Championship so that they can of course win a trophy and that they will get a automatic qualifying spot into CCL, or they will just not think about winning the Canadian Championship and just focus on the fact that they are trying to make a playoff push. And obviously they couldn't do both at the same time, because knowing the fact that down the stretch they were facing these two kind of obstacle, and that it was just a matter of them either thinking about putting their eggs in the basket in CCL, or they're just going to put their eggs in the basket in the league. And it turns out they put their eggs in the basket in the Canadian Championship, and they were able to win that, and were able to win that on a penalty kick shootout, and that because of that, they are going to be going to CCL next year. Now, as I will talk a little bit later in this moving forward series, the question is, how far can they go into CCL? And that there's no doubt that if you look at all the teams that have qualified into CCL out of the MLS team, and I believe there's actually one more spot left in terms of a MLS team going to CCL, and that of course is whoever wins the MLS Cup, or whoever wins the MLS Cup that have already qualified for CCL. I believe that's going to be second place team either in the Western Conference or in the Eastern Conference. And it's going to be interesting to see how deep they of course would go, and that, like I said, they are probably the weakest team considered when you look at all the teams that have qualified in CCL. Teams like Atlanta and LAFC, all those teams are just so much better than what the Impact is. And that the other thing that went right for them is that somewhat they actually had a decent defense earlier in the season. I mean, I know when you look at the 60 goals that they have conceded this season, it looked like how do I say that one thing that went right for them is that their defense looked good early in the season. But it is true. I mean, their defense was actually very decent, and that a lot of that has to do with the fact that early in the season they were pretty much a bunker team, and that they were a team that a lot of teams really do not like to face, because they always put a low block on their opponent, and that they did a good job in terms of trying to not only be very compact with the low block, but they also able to kind of snatch and grab a goal or two there. And that it was, in many ways, early in the season for the Impact, they had a lot of wins that was just kind of those gritty kind of performance that they just grinded out in the end, and that they of course were able to get all 3 points that way. Now, what went wrong for them? And before I talk about the first thing went wrong for them, I'm gonna quickly talk about the last thing that went wrong for them, because you know how I said that they were being a very low block kind of team, and that they were having a lot of gritty and just ugly kind of win where they somehow in some way find a way to score a goal. Well, it's good that they, of course, can grind out a result like that, but it gets to a point where you don't want to do that every single game, and that eventually it's going to caught up to you, and it definitely did with this Impact team. I mean, the way that they keep trying to play it, eventually it kind of got caught up to them, and that their defense started to kind of look very vulnerable, which that, of course, is my second point of what went wrong in the second half. And once that defense looked vulnerable and that there was some gaps in that low block kind of defense, that's when they basically just get absolutely exploited. The other thing that went wrong for the Impact is that they didn't have PRT for most of the season. So, as I mentioned with the Impact for most of the year, they really are desperately missing PRT for most of the year, and that in the first half of the year they kind of didn't miss him because of the fact that they were getting these gritty wins and that they were able to grind out result. But like I said, as time goes and the fact that they still aren't able to have him back, because I think after he returned from that long injury, he immediately went down just 2 weeks later, and that is when the Impact really kind of start to collapse, which I think it's kind of understandable because you just got your leader back after a long injury, and that literally 2 weeks later he basically went down. I mean, that has to be very, very demoralizing, and that, I guess, that is also one of the key factor of why the Impact kind of collapsed in the second half, and that the low block kind of gritty and just grinding out kind of way to play just does not work when you started to look very vulnerable on your defensive end. Now, moving forward for the Impact, obviously the big question for the Impact right now is Nacho Piatti and whether or not if he's staying with Montreal or not. I mean, as I said, I think last week in the news of the week, or actually on Wednesday on the news of the week, he says that he wants to stay in Montreal, and that Montreal has also reported that they have exercised his contract option until the end of the year. But the thing is, it wasn't actually confirmed, and that we thought that it was going to be maybe confirmed once Nacho Piatti has his exit season conference, but he never attended that exit season conference, and that there's still a lot of doubt about whether or not if he's actually going to be staying with this team or not. I mean, I thought this season the difference of him staying with this team or not has to be the way that the Impact's got to do something either in the playoffs or win Canadian Championship, because I have no doubt that if the Impact did not win Canadian Championship this year, or they did not make the playoffs this year, there is no way that Piatti is going to be staying and that he is going to just go back to Argentina and retire there. But, there is still kind of a question whether or not if he is staying, even though they won the Canadian Championship, and that he, of course, will be, if he is staying, he of course will be part of this team that will be going into the CONCACAF Champions League. The second thing moving forward for them is that Cabrera is the right man for this Montreal team, and can he of course lead this team to playoff success? I mean, it was always very strange the fact that the Impact fired Remy Gard, and literally 4 days later they decided to get Wilmer Cabrera. I mean, it's not very often when you see many teams that fire their head coach, and that literally in just such a short turnaround, unless if it's someone that is available and that they know for sure that is going to have successful with their team, they would immediately hire them just 4 days after they fire the last manager. And Cabrera, I know he has done some good things with the Houston team before he, of course, got fired from him. But I didn't think that in many ways that he would be a guy that just jump right back into management. And then I did also say that I won't be surprised if Cabrera is going to get another opportunity at an MLS team after he, of course, got fired from the Dynamo. But I also didn't say the fact that he would just get back into management with an MLS team literally 4 days after he basically got fired. So that was a very strange kind of coaching hiring, and you wonder, is this kind of a long-term option for Montreal, or is it just Montreal really needs a head coach, and that they got, since they saw one of the head coach in the league got fired, they just decided, you know what, we might as well just pick him up because, you know, we're thinking about getting a new head coach, but we're just gonna get him almost as if kind of like an intern kind of basis. So, you know, I don't know. Is he gonna be actually the right man for this job? And that, you know, I don't know if he's going to last very, very long with this team. I mean, if this team next season do not do very well and that this team does not make the playoffs, I won't be surprised if Cabrera is going to be out of this team. And the third thing moving forward for Montreal is how far can they go into CCL. As I mentioned earlier, the fact that they are definitely the worst team out of all the MLS team that is in CONCACAF Champions League heading into next season. And I will say this, Montreal in CCL in the past year, even though they're not considered a team that go deep into CCL, they done it a couple of times in the past. I mean, the most famous case was, I think, 4 years ago. They went all the way to the final and they were playing against America, and that they even got a draw against America at the Azteca before falling apart when they, of course, played the second leg and played the home leg where they lost 4-1 to America. So this team has a history of going deep into CCL, and that they have some experience of being in this competition and know what it needs to do to go far into the competition. So I will definitely not be surprised if this team, despite the fact that they're the underdog, could go as far as many people would think, and that they might even be the last man standing in MLS with the way that they have shown in the past that they can go deep into this competition. So yeah, either way guys, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this video, and if you're a Montreal fan, what do you think went right for your team, what went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward for your team. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.